Hey guys, what's going on? Thanks for joining me tonight. I'm Spiguyver, this is Spiguyver Backpacking, and tonight we've got another stove test video. So, stove we're testing tonight, this one right here, this is the Venom Stove by Zelph. So this is a really cool stove, and here's why. You see that? It is just the ring on the outside. From this side, it looks a lot like the Fancy Feast, which is another stove done by Zelph. But this one, while it has the pot stand on top, also is completely hollow. I mean, that's pretty cool, pretty unique. So it's got a fiberglass wicking around the outside. And so what we're gonna do is fill it up. We're gonna use 1 ounce, and we're gonna do the same protocols we always do. 1 ounce of fuel, it'll be yellow bottle heat. 12 ounces of water in each of the 3 pots we'll be testing, the 700, the 550, and the Foster's pot. So why don't we get this thing all set up, come on back, and we'll get this thing going. Let's go. All right, thanks for coming back. I've got the Venom Stove all fueled up. Now, one of the things that people complain about, and some people have done a little bit of a cut to their measuring cup, but to fill this, you actually have to kind of tilt it and push this up against here to get it to run down in there. Otherwise, you end up spilling it all over the place. I did a pretty good job of putting it in there. Now, let's talk about the specs of this stove. So this stove has a capacity of between 1 and 2 ounces. I can't recall. I've got 1 ounce in there right now, and it's just fine. The weight of this stove, it's a little bit heavier, but it is a much heavier duty stove. It's 48.9 grams. So this thing weighs a fair amount. In terms of some of the other alcohol stoves I've got, this is one of the heavier of them, but works really well as far as being integrated, being stable, being very solid. This is a solid stove. So we've got it filled up. We've got 60 degree, hovering right between 60, 61, as you can see right here on here. This is one of those that you can set the pot right on there. Make sure you've got it nice and centered, and light it because it's a wick stove. And looks like the wick just started, so we're gonna go ahead and hit start. And we'll come back when this thing comes to a boil. Okay, here is the flame pattern for this stove. Now, we are over 2 minutes in at this point, and I had to wait until probably a minute, close to a minute, before the wick had lit all the way around. So that's just something to consider when you light these, is it takes a little bit longer for it to get lit all the way around, especially with the colder fuel that I was using. Okay, we just passed 200 degrees. One of the longer times we've seen in these tests. Now, it could be because of how long it took for it to come to a full bloom. So we may have to test this one again. All right, 723 for a boil. Let's figure out what burnout is. Okay, we're just past 14 minutes, and the flame pattern is definitely getting a little bit smaller. You can see on the right-hand side, it is going out. You can see a little bit of flicker there in the fabric, the fiberglass wicking material. I don't know how well you can see it, but you can definitely see the flicker there. Temperature is starting to come down. Still got one spot that's burning pretty well. I'm gonna go ahead and call that flame out at 1507. 1507 flame out. All right, so next up, we've got the 550 pot. We are sitting right at 61 degrees right now. I've got the Venom Stove fueled back up, ready to go. And like I said before, filling this thing up is a little bit tricky. I spilled a little bit on the side, not a big deal. Now, one of the things I'm gonna do with this test, different from the first one with the 700, and I will do another test outside just to see how this goes, but I'm gonna let this come to a bloom all the way around, so it's lit all the way around before I set the pot on there. I don't know if that caused any difference in what it'll do. If this one's boil time is significantly slower or shorter, significantly shorter than the 700, then I know that it had a pretty good impact. So let's go ahead and get this started. I'm gonna try just lighting it on the other side as well. So it looks like it is going. I'm gonna go ahead, there we go. That's much better. Start it, and we'll see what this one does. Okay, we're passing 200 degrees, approaching 7 minutes. Now we're getting close to a boil. And that's a boil at 7 minutes, 10 seconds. 7 minutes, 10 seconds. We've got a good, strong boil. We'll come back for burnout. And the flames are dying down, just about gone, and I'm gonna call that burnout right there at 1326. All right, last up is gonna be the Foster's pot. So I will say, this thing is definitely the hardest of all the stoves I have to fill. I've got a pretty good puddle underneath it right now, but I'm gonna use that puddle to help heat it up and get this thing to a bloom. This water is a little bit warmer. It's up to 64 degrees. I don't think that's gonna help it because of the size of the base on this thing. So we'll see. We will see how this one works. We'll get this thing going and see what we get for boil time on this. All right, so she's lit. Let's see. Not quite to a bloom yet. There we go. Now it's starting to come up. Get that on there. Hit start, and we'll come back and see. All right, there's 200 degrees right at 8 minutes and 15 seconds. Still continuing to climb. And there we have a boil at 8 minutes and 50 seconds. 8 minutes, 50 seconds for the Foster's pot. What's interesting is one side has barely any flame and the other side is shooting still up the side of the pot. Okay, the flames are now starting to flicker just a little bit. All right, it's going. I'm gonna call that burnout right there at 1504. 1504. All right, guys, so there was the test for the Zelph Venom Stove. Really cool stove. Was it the best performer? Well, it depends on what you're looking for. As far as boil times, with the 700, we were at 723. With the 550, we were at 710. And then when we went to the Foster's pot, that little narrow pot, it was only able to do it in 8 minutes and 50 seconds. Burn time, you know, I had two that were right in the 15-minute range and then one that was like 13 and a half minutes. And I think the reason for the difference is trying to fill this. So you fill up your measuring cup and then you're trying to fill it like that. I think the easier way is to use a flip top like this and just spray it in like this. It's a whole lot easier. And you're gonna spill a whole lot less. So if you're worried about actually measuring it out, you're gonna have to use the measuring cup and do it that way. But otherwise, I would suggest just spraying it in. So not a bad performer. Let's take a look at the leaderboard. Okay, here is our current leaderboard. Still on the top with the fastest boil is a Spiguyver stove at 435. The Venom comes in way down, second to last at 7 minutes and 10 seconds, and that was with the 550 pot. For burn, it comes in second. And what's cool to note here is if you look at 1, 2, and 3, those are all Zelph stoves. So you've got the Starlight Modified, the Venom, and the Fancy Feast all burning 13 minutes or longer. The next best was the Brasslight Turbo. Now, of note, the Brasslight Turbo does have an adjustment on it that you could turn down and it would burn for about a half hour. So, something to note there. Then, if we're looking at the fuel used, it comes right in the middle with 0.47 ounces. Alright, so, Venom Stove. Not bad. A little bit heavy for what you get out of it performance-wise. I would rather go with something very similar to it, made by the same people. The Fancy Feast, which does a little bit better. So, you know, and it weighs half as much as this one. But this one is just a really cool design, as you can see. You can see right through it. Just an awesome, awesome design. Something different, something that I wanted to have, and it is bomb-proof. It's one of those that you can throw around, you can toss around and not worry about. It's going to be there, it's going to survive, and it's going to be one of those that hangs around. All right, so next week, come back where we'll be testing out the Trail Design Kojin. So the Kojin is another one kind of like the Starlight, where it's got a screw top. You just put the fuel in there, light it, and it goes. And you can save the fuel, you can blow it out. All right, guys, I appreciate you guys checking in, seeing how the Venom worked out. Leaderboard is shaping up. I will see you guys down the trail.